Well, this is All Out Politics, news, debate and opinion from the heart of Westminster. Labour's National Executive Committee is meeting today to discuss the rules in the process to replace Jeremy Corbyn as the party's leader. Tom Watson and replacing Tom Watson as deputy as well. 5 candidates have so far officially thrown their hats into the ring. They are Sir Keir Starmer, Jess Phillips, Clive Lewis, Emily Thornberry and Lisa Nandy. But more, including the Shadow Business Secretary Rebecca Long-Bailey, are expected to join in. Well, with me now to discuss that is Sonia Sodha, who is the chief leader writer at The Observer. Joining us from North London is the journalist for Huck magazine, amongst others, Michael Segalov. Welcome to you both. Let's just talk very broadly, first of all, Sonia. How is this race for the Labour leadership and indeed deputy leadership shaping up in your view?
So, I mean, the first thing to say is it's no great surprise, but it's shaping up sort of pretty rancorously in some respects. There's a lot of kind of raking over Labour's loss back in December, asking the questions about why Labour lost so badly, lots of competing narratives. I don't think that's a surprise. I think there were some people who hoped that after a loss of that scale, Labour would go into a sort of deep, considered decision about who was going to be its next leader. But of course, that's not how these decisions tend to get made. You tend to sort of descend into quite a lot of sectarian politicking about who was really responsible for this, why did this happen? And that's kind of what we've seen in the race so far. But today's NEC meeting, I think, will be pretty significant because the NEC is still very much controlled. You know, Corbyn may have lost the election quite dramatically, but Corbyn...
You're not suggesting they might try and influence the outcome of the contest?
Well, I think it's what Labour leaderships have historically done, and the Labour left has a favoured candidate, that is Rebecca Long-Bailey, who's not officially declared, but everyone is expecting to declare this week. And there are a number of aspects about the procedure that are within the NEC's gift. For example, the rules around registered supporters, where you pay a fee to get to have a vote. How long is that window going to be open for? How much are people going to be charged? The window that candidates have to try and secure the nominations of 21 MPs and MEPs and a certain number of constituency Labour parties and affiliated trade unions and societies. How long is that window going to be? That could be crucial in determining who gets through to the next phase of the competition, which is an all-member ballot. So these are important decisions that the NEC are going to be making, and the NEC is still very much controlled by the left. And one thing that's really characterised this contest so far and this discussion post-election is Corbyn lost the election very dramatically, that's true, but actually, you know, certain people who worked very closely with him, like Kerry Murphy and Seamus Milne, not only have they not stepped down from their positions, they've actually gone from having sort of temporary political contracts to permanent contracts with the party. So the left is not looking to give way, it's actually looking to sort of secure its grip.
Well, a lot of points there, Michael Segalov. First of all, about the NEC's choices before them, whether to favour a Corbyn successor or not, how do you feel that's likely to go?
Well, I think I kind of disagree with Sonia in some ways, mostly that I'm not convinced there is a favoured candidate of the left. If you look at the politicians, commentators, activists online, lots of them are really open to the idea of seeing what comes next and having a kind of an open and fair contest, and one that does go down and drill deep into looking into what went wrong. People like Dan Abbott have tweeted about Clive Lewis, for instance. The old head of Momentum, Laura Parker, has been tweeting about Keir Starmer. So there is some openness there, I think, about what comes next and how. That said, I think that the NEC will do what it did last time in 2015, I hope, and make a fair and open contest for as many people as possible to join and vote in. You saw what happened in 2016, where I think it was a £25 fee imposed for people to join and be involved in the leadership race. That can't be good for democracy. What we've seen Jess Phillips do in the last few days in particular, which I think is great, is encourage more people to join the Labour Party, to sign up and be involved in this contest. And I hope whichever candidate stand, from whichever wing of the party, they do the same, because ultimately the best thing the Labour Party can do is to encourage more members to join and be engaged in its democratic processes.
I mean, it seems to be something that, you know, one of the key questions is about Rebecca Long-Bailey. I mean, she clearly, once Laura Pidcock was not elected, she was clearly going to be the favoured son of favoured daughter rather of Jeremy Corbyn, but more particularly of John McDonnell. And yet it all seems to have stalled a bit for her in the weeks, and she still hasn't put a name forward. Some people are even saying she's reluctant to.
Well, I mean, we will see this week. I think most people are very much expecting her to put her name forward. She wrote an article in The Guardian over the kind of Christmas and New Year period, which was very clearly setting out a kind of leadership stall. So I think people would be very surprised if she didn't put herself forward. I think maybe, before the general election, there was a bit more of an assumption that perhaps there would be an anointed candidate that had the backing of Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, and that candidate was going to be very, very difficult to beat. Now, what that assumption doesn't take into account is that actually, I think, although the membership is generally very left and is more left than it was, say, 5 years ago, much bigger membership as well, and although the membership is generally very pro-Jeremy Corbyn, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to vote like robots for the person that John McDonnell tells them that they should. And actually, what's very interesting is we had a poll over the break done by YouGov. Now, it was only of party members, not of affiliated supporters who will also get a vote, but that poll actually showed Keir Starmer to be in the lead, and there are certainly people on the left of the party who may well swing behind Keir Starmer and back him. So I think the contest is definitely very much open. It feels like a bit of a two-horse race at the moment between Long Bailey and Keir Starmer. It could become more open in the weeks to come, but it certainly isn't sewn up for Rebecca Long Bailey.
Do you see it as that a two-horse race, Michael, in the end?
Not yet, no, but I think Sonia's right to identify that it's playing out slightly differently to how it was expected. And I think that's partly because the candidates have come down fairly broadly. Jess Phillips, aside, who's not really set out her political stall yet, by saying that Labour's kind of direction over the last few years, the economic policies, certainly that sat at the heart of the 2017 manifesto, were in the right direction, that they're not things to be abandoned. I think there was an assumption that lots of candidates would come out and say the opposite, that, Labour diverted from its kind of position in the centre, and therefore I think Long Bailey would have come through. But people like Keir Starmer have made it perfectly clear that whilst the 2019 manifesto left a lot to be desired, and clearly there were issues around leadership, the principles down there are the same. What I also say is that on the most part, even though people are writing their op-eds in The Guardian saying Labour needs to do its magic in reconnecting sort of metropolitan areas with its working class roots in the North East and the Midlands, no one's really set out much of a political vision yet. And so I don't necessarily buy that the two-horse race has been set, because ultimately, as Sonia's identified, the Labour membership are genuinely interested in some soul searching and in finding out where the Labour Party might go next. And if any of the candidates from either side of the party, whether that be Clive Lewis, Lisa Nandy, Emily Thornberry even, do come up with a compelling narrative, which no one has really done yet, I wouldn't count them out.
Okay, at this stage, I'm not going to hold you to it because you say there's a lot to come, but just give us a name. If you had to put a pound on someone in a sweepstake, who would it be, Michael?
Oh, I mean, at the moment it looks like Keir Starmer, but I wouldn't count out Rebecca Long Bailey quite yet. I just think that they're clearly working very hard to work out their position, and I suspect that the work that she did over the election, particularly around the Green Industrial Revolution, might be the thing that comes to the fore in this leadership debate. The climate change issue is one that's going to ultimately be incredibly pressing in 5 years' time when Labour are once again fighting a general election, and I think that whoever comes out kicking on that might do incredibly well.
Sonia gives a name.
I'd go for Keir Starmer at this point in time, but it is still quite open.
And being the favourite going into a Labour contest is not always a good thing, is it? Thank you both very much indeed.